Breaking news from the Middle East and around the world. Are we on the brink of World War III, and is the stage set for the Ezekiel 38 war prophesied to take place near the time of the rapture? After the Lord returns for the body of Christ, the church, God will resume his dealings with Israel for a period of 7 years in the Tribulation Period known as Daniel's 70th week. And the prophet Ezekiel prophesied of a war that would take place that would bring modern-day Russia, modern-day Turkey, and modern-day Iran against the nation of Israel. Before the second coming of Christ, when Jesus returns to Jerusalem and establishes his millennial kingdom on earth for 1,000 years, the coalition of Turkey, Russia, and Iran will come against Israel and lose, according to the prophet Ezekiel. And not because of Israel's might and strength, but because God will deliver them miraculously. But what is going on in these countries at this very moment that could potentially trigger that war? Let's begin in the Ukraine and Russia. As the Ukraine has been seeking to join NATO for protection against Russia and become more westernized, the NATO allies have begun, including the U.S., to deploy missiles and air defense systems into the Ukraine that has ticked off Vladimir Putin, president of Russia. As a result, hundreds of thousands of troops from both the Ukraine and Russia have been deployed to the border for a potential war. With zero respect at all for the Biden administration, Putin recently made threats that if the U.S. and NATO allies did not get out of the Ukraine, that military action would take place. The two are expected to meet any day now, but after the disastrous Biden withdrawal from Afghanistan and the lack of respect and fear for the United States right now, it is unlikely that much will be accomplished. Which brings us to Iran, who just this week made threats that if the United States doesn't get out of every single bordering country to Iran, that they would take military action against us. But as confirmed by the highest leadership in Iran this week, their primary focus remains the destruction of Israel. As the world seeks to prevent Iran from becoming nuclear capable, the most recent and possibly last nuclear talks in Vienna yesterday was a complete failure, and Iran has now positioned themselves to make a nuclear attack against Israel. And just a few hours ago in Iran, reports came in that there was an explosion near one of their main nuclear plants that initially Iran said was a military exercise, but since then things have begun to develop to where 2 villages nearby have been evacuated. There are reports coming in of strange odor in the air, and now Iran has cut off all communication to that region of Iran. There's a lot of speculation that it was a UAV attack to the nuclear facility. The question is, was it Israel that made the move? And with Turkey's economy now collapsing, Madman Erdogan's capable of anything.